Let me see if I'm live or not. Yes, I'm live. Well, this live stream is going to be quite short, so I'm not going to stay here for way too long. So just going to wait like a minute or two to see who comes in. And after 2 minutes, I'm going to start teaching anyway. So those that come later or those who don't make it to the live stream, they can watch it afterwards because I'm going to keep this one short. If you're here, let me know that you're here in the live chat, please. Let me know if you can hear me clearly in the live chat if you're here, and I'll wait for 1.5 minutes and then I'll continue. Good. I see Semiramis is here, so okay, that's good. Oh, here's people. Aaron is here. That's good. Just 1 more minute, then I'll begin to teach. Okay. So I'm using the webcam version now of this live stream. So if it's all right, there's no delay in if you can hear me or not. Normally it's a delay of 10 to 20 seconds between what I'm saying and what you're seeing and hearing. Now, if it's all right, there isn't any. I could look up the Bible verse I'm going to use for today on my mobile phone, and then I'm going to start. So if you have your Bibles, pick it up, or you can go online to BibleGateway.com. So, okay. The Bible Gateway. Yes, I found it. Okay. For those that have your Bibles with you, or you can go online, go to Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12. Use the King James Version or the New King James Version, please. So Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12. It says, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death." Well, let me read that one more time. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. What does this tell you? This tells you that for us believers, sometimes there are methods and ways to deal with situations that we subscribe to. Why? Because our parents did it that way. So that's what we're familiar with. Or we feel like doing it because that's what other people are doing and it works for them. For example, some people, when they are upset or they're not interested in something, just throw it out. And when they throw it out, they've dumped their frustration and they're at ease. And everyone else has to find a way to deal with it. And then to make it up, they say, yeah, but at least I'm honest. In their instinct, let's say their intuition reveals on them that this is wrong, that they should be flexible with people, but because everyone does it, it's validated to do it also. Other people just ignore people that they don't know, or better said, people that they don't have a grip on, just so they can feel secure because they have a low self-esteem. So in the world, you have various ways how to deal with things. Some ways are criminalized by the politicians. Other ways are also bad, but they're tolerated. So you have various ways of dealing with stuff. And I'm telling you, believers, that many of those ways that we've been conditioned into are just plainly wrong. Why are they wrong? Because those ways are self-destructive in the long run. There's a way that seems right to a man, seems right. So based on the lack of knowledge of that individual, that manner of dealing with that situation appears the right way. But the end of it is a way of death. So what it actually leads to in the long run is ruin and destruction. But because on the short term, there's some reward, some relief that someone can get out of it, they think it's okay, especially if that way of dealing with something is validated by the community. But let me tell you one thing, just because something is validated by the community does not mean that it's all right. There was a time that, well, in some countries it happens, there was a time that it was considered all right to use sticks, belts, and weapons on children to make them validate you. Also in Europe. Today, in many places in the Western world, and also outside of it, if you even dare suggest to do that to one of your own children, you'll end up in jail. You'll end up in prison, sometimes for years. So just because in the past they used to condone it and get along with it doesn't mean it's all right. There was a time that slavery was considered also a good way for a society to deal with their unwillingness to be fair. When a society does not want to equally pay people what they work for their labor, they come up with slavery. They have a group of people who are fed, they get housing, but they're not allowed to do anything. Slave was a way for human societies to escape having to deal with their own unfairness. Today, if people even hear that you have slaves in many countries, you go to jail, you go to prison. It's not accepted anymore. So what I'm showing here is that the world has ways to deal with difficulties or with challenges that appear right when you look at on the short term. On the long term, it's darkness. And why is it important to understand this as a believer? Because many of such ways are embraced by those pagan churches. And those ways are embraced by those pagan churches are ways that we also promote. But those ways, even some atheists may look at it and think, what? How can those people claim to follow the real God, yet they deal with ways to deal with situations in a toxic way, just like us worldlings? Then the atheists may look at it and think, oh, hold on a minute, what is this? Look, let me give you one example of a way that appears very right unto us, but it's really narcissistic. You were born on the earth. You came out of a woman, your mom. And the semen that developed from which you developed came from your dad. That's how it's going on for generation after generation. We know that. So that means that there was a human history before you came. And now you're here. So you cannot be alive today and only be focused on what refers to you. That's absurd. But that's the attitude a lot of people have. If something does not mention their name or something that benefits their relief, they have no interest, it doesn't exist to them. That's the attitude a lot of people have. And if you mention anything that does not refer onto them, they're not interested. They either just walk away or they flat out attack you, say, I don't want to hear that, or whatever. And in the world, when people are violent like this, people say they're honest. No, they're not. They just want to dump their frustration for not being flexible. Because with reality, you have to be flexible. So if someone does not want to be responsible towards the community by being flexible in reality, in the world, they give you an excuse, just dump what's on your mind. As long as you don't go way too far, it's all right. And then you have children seeing their parents doing this to other people, or sometimes parents do to their children, and now they do adopt this way of thinking also. And they say, I'm just authentic, I'm real, I'm not fake, I'm honest, I'm keeping it real. No, you're not. You just want to dump. You just want relief. You just want to be left alone. Everyone else has to take your narrow self-imposed restrictions. So, when you examine this carefully, when you examine this in a watchful way, you see clearly that what the world calls honesty is just transparent violence that people tolerate. Because if you are a child doing the same thing to someone that's older, they would say, you don't talk like that. But if an adult does it to a child, when an adult does to another adult who's considered of lower rank, then it's all right. It's the same thing. So I said that when a child does it, it's rude. When an adult does it, it's honesty. Do you see the double standard here? Now, double standards can be practical if, for example, you are dealing with weightlifting in a gym, and one is a female, the other is a male. Now, the male has more testosterone, so they have more strength in their bones than a female. So if you have a contest with weightlifting, of course, you will have a higher standard for the males and for the females. That's different. But when it comes to daily life and to things as violence, when an adult does something to another adult that's considered of less value, we think it says, okay, he's just being honest. She's just being honest. It's just the way they are. If a child will do the same thing, just like that, we will be abhorred. Why is that? Because children are direct. Children can see clearly when something is wrong. Semiramis, thank you for all your comments, but keep it down a little bit so that others are not distracted. Thank you. So just think about this, believers. If something is done by a child and we abhor it, then why are adults practicing it? If a tiny human being is not allowed to do it because we abhor it, then why can adults do it? So that tiny human being has more sense than an adult? Unfortunately, that's often the case. So what I'm saying here in this live stream is that all the ways you relate in your life, whether it's to difficulties or to other people or to strangers, whatever, every way you relate to stuff must be Christ-centered, with Christ as the center. Because if Christ is not the center, something else is, or someone else is. So either you have God at the center, as you're supposed to, or you have an idol at the center. People that have idols as their center, they always have double standards, and sometimes even triple standards when they're dealing with stuff. When they do something that's out of line, they have the reasons, or the other make them do it, or it wasn't that bad. When someone else does something that they don't want, or it's not in their expectations, they have a right to cut people off, not to ignore people, or just flat out attack people because people are rude or whatever. Everyone that's in idolatry has double and triple standards, all of them. Society itself has double and triple standards. There's a standard for the elite, there's a standard for the commoner, and a standard for scapegoats. So all societies have three standards. In daily life, often two standards are used, one for commoners and one for scapegoats. And this duality of standards, children can see through it easily. For example, let's say that this is something that really happened, okay? You have a shop, and you have this white, I wouldn't say white, but this albino woman who kind of appears white because she's albino, so she has no melanin in her skin, but she goes through as white. And she's with a relative who is just brown skinned. And the relative that's brown skinned has a child with her. The albino goes in front to get to purchase some liquor. And she gets it. The woman behind I would say the woman behind has to take the payment. She says, yes, ma'am, have a nice day. Then this brown skinned woman comes with her brown child. And the one that has to take the payment says, "Man, do you have your ID with you?" And the brown-skinned woman thinks, "Why do you need to show my ID? You can see I'm an adult, right? Your ID, please." So she shows ID. "Okay, let me check your ID. Also, let me check your credit card, please." So she gives her credit card, even though she wanted to pay cash. And then she goes through a list of fraudulent credit cards to see whether she's on it. And then the brown-skinned woman asks, "Why are you doing all of this?" And then the other woman says, "Well, it's just a common procedure." And the daughter of that brown-skinned woman sees this, and she sees immediately that there's a double standard. That relative, that albino, came back and said, "Man, what are you doing?" The other woman said, "Yeah, I'm just following procedure." No. You're not following procedure, because I purchased liquor and she didn't even ask me for an ID. You can see clearly I was an adult. She has been coming here for years. I've only been around here for months. But you treat her like she's a potential criminal. But me, you simply just trust? Oh, so that's how you treat people around here? Just call your manager for a moment. So they called the manager, and the manager was embarrassed, and all the other people in there were embarrassed, also thinking because of what was going on. Because that albino woman realized, I'm not going to allow this to happen. I'm going to set this straight. Now, normally, people would just allow it to happen. And if the brown woman would protest, they would call the cops, saying that she would try to resist and she would be in trouble. But that's what I mean. In society, there are two standards, one for the average individual and one for scapegoats. The standard for the scapegoat is that they are never good enough and that everyone has the right to dump their filth on them. The standard for the average individual, the commoner, is that they need to make sure others are relieved. Keep everyone happy. Those are two standards every society has. The third standard, especially for the elite, is that they keep themselves hidden from the masses because they are the gods of the community. And to the community is required to worship those people as gods. That's why in many countries you have all those titles. For example, in the United States, it's common to say your honor to a judge, whether the individual is honorable or not, doesn't matter. You have to stand up when the judge comes into the room. Why do you do that? Why is he or she so important that she just stand up when you walk into the room? Why is it someone that says all rise, that you all have to rise up? What is that? In Britain, they have titles as the Right Honourable or the Honourable. That's how they address each other in the UK Parliament, even though they don't do anything that's honourable for the people. So you know that every society has three standards. The standard for the elite, most people don't even think about it because they're not part of the elite. But everyone wants to be approved by the standard for the average individual. Because if you don't meet the standard for the commoner, then you will automatically be treated as a scapegoat. And once you've been selected as a scapegoat, most of the time it's never reversed. Because people will invest in you as a dump site. And once they invest in you as a dump site, it's only that on their part is going to stop it. So that is what motivates people to get along in society. And part of this getting along implies taking over the coping mechanisms of society. Whether someone is passive aggressive, or someone is just dumping, being blunt, claiming they're honest, or whether someone is always avoiding, whatever type of coping mechanism it is, society gives you coping mechanisms to deal with society's violence. And most people get along with the coping mechanism because they want to be approved. They want to meet the standard for the commoner. Now that's the world. But believers should not even be interested in any of those standards, because all those standards are based on seeking relief. It's based on people not wanting to deal with reality. So believers have to look at a situation and think, okay, if I encounter a situation that I'm uncomfortable with, why am I uncomfortable with this situation? If I'm uncomfortable with the situation because the situation is dangerous in itself, then I should be uncomfortable because it's a dangerous situation. Okay, but how do I deal with this dangerous situation? How do I de-escalate out of this situation? That's how the thing of the believer ought to be. But what happens is that a lot of believers have patterns of thinking that they've adopted from society that they use every time they encounter something that they consider uncomfortable. Whatever pattern it is holding on to, whether it's a pattern of fighting or fleeing or freezing, we have those patterns that we perceive as natural while they're not. And it's those patterns that we need to get out of us. Because I can guarantee you one thing. It doesn't matter how much you pray, how much you fast, how much you decree and declare. If you are operating in darkness, there will be no outworking of the blessing on your behalf. There will be no abundance, no victory, no life flowing through you if you operate in darkness. So if you are operating in self-preservation and self-validation, that means you're operating in darkness. And as long as you operate in darkness, you will attract dark people onto you. Now, if you're walking in the power of Christ, dark people will come to you to seek to exploit you. So that happens. But eventually they'll stay away due to repercussions. But if you're not walking in the power, that means there is no victory for you. That means that you'll attract dangerous people and creeps that love to be around you. Why? Because you're operating something that they are familiar with. And too many believers are operating in darkness. Yet, those same believers question, why aren't things working out in my life? Well, if you operate in disobedience, you cannot benefit from the fruit that's available when you walk by faith. Look, if you purchase a vacuum cleaner, there is a small book with instructions on how to use a vacuum cleaner. It says that you need to plug it into the PowerPoint. Then you need to put it together. You need to fill this. You need to put an empty sack in it so that when it sucks up all the dirt, it goes into the sack. And when you are using the vacuum cleaner, there's a certain way to use it so that you will vacuum the place correctly. If you follow the instructions, you will be prosperous using the vacuum cleaner. But if you're using the vacuum cleaner and you don't put a sack in it before you do it, you will suck up dirt from the floor, but it's going to be a mess afterwards because there's no sack where it goes into, because normally it goes into the sack. Now you pick up the sack and throw the sack away. But if you don't put a sack in it, later you're going to think, why doesn't it suck up any dirt anymore? And then you're going to see, oh, I can open it. And then you encounter all that dust, all that dirt, and you think, what is this? I'm telling you what it is. You didn't follow the instructions. Or if someone wants to vacuum clean, but they have the vacuum cleaner in the air, you would think, what? It's not an air cleaner. Okay, so you need to put it on the ground. So I use the example of a vacuum cleaner to tell you that there's a manual that comes with it to benefit you in using the vacuum cleaner. If you follow the manual, it will be all right. If you're baking a cheesecake, for example, you have a manual, that is a recipe on how to mix all the ingredients and how long to put it in the oven. If you don't follow the manual, you will be baking something, but it won't be a cheesecake. It will be something quite messy that you're making. So if you don't follow the manual and you get a bad result, is it a punishment? Is it someone afflicting harm on you because you didn't do what they want? No, it's just the natural result of not following the manual. The same it is in daily life when it comes to walking by faith. You ought to follow the manual of Christ. If you don't follow the manual, if you follow the manual, you won't have to bother with the violence coming against you. But if you don't follow it and you follow your own ideas, how you think about stuff or what you're convinced of, you are in darkness. It doesn't matter how much invested you are in those expectations or boundaries, as people like to call it in the world. If it's not in line with Christ, you're wrong. Period. Let me check if there are any questions here. Okay, look. Self-preservation is looking after yourself just to avoid harm. When you walk by faith, you realize, first of all, that you are a vulnerable creature and you have weaknesses. And besides being a vulnerable spiritual creature, you also have a mortal body right now. You will have an immortal body when Christ returns, but right now you have a mortal body. So knowing all of this should motivate you to get out of self-preservation, because then you're holding on to a safety you can't secure. Self-preservation is holding on to a safety you can't secure. Now, if you are hiking and you stay on the trail, that's practical. If you go off the trail, you may fall into a valley and hurt yourself or die. So, of course, there are things you have some influence with your behavior. Don't get me wrong. But even if you make all the right decisions, there are always things outside of your grip that you don't control. You can be on the road. You're obeying all the traffic signs. You know when to stop, you know when to drive, and out of the blue, there's this truck driver that's drunk with his truck, and he suddenly comes right into you, out of the blue. Is that your fault that he's drunk, driving drunk with his truck, and the truck suddenly came onto you? No. You couldn't have seen it coming, but it's still happening, so there's still danger. So it's not your fault that you encountered danger. The thing is, you couldn't have seen that coming. So it doesn't matter how much you do yourself as a human being, you remain a vulnerable creature anyway. So that's why you ought to be humble. That means you need spiritual assistance. And here's the thing. Pagans don't operate in self-preservation. Pagans don't. And there's a question here, how do we protect ourselves from predators if we don't have boundaries? I'm explaining it right now, and I'm going to finish this for you. Just as I just explained to you, you're a vulnerable creature. So the whole idea of you coming up with limitations that you want to enforce on dangerous people, that's baloney. Because if someone is dangerous, limitations aren't even going to help. Because they're dangerous people. So what do? You acknowledge you're a vulnerable creature and a spirit being. You're a spirit being first, and as a spirit being, you're vulnerable. That means that as a spirit being, you have spirit abilities. And one of the main spirit abilities we all have is the inner radar, or the intuition. And intuition can sense things. So, as a human being, you are a spirit being with a physical extension, a physical body. You have physical senses that you use. The same way you use your physical senses, you also use your spirit senses. So if you sense something on the energetic level, that's it. You just pay attention to it. That's one thing you do. So you are spiritually active. Secondly, you acknowledge you need spiritual aid. You need spiritual aid. So what do? This is what pagans do. Pagans do their rituals at home. And because of that, the demons generate this artificial energy skin on top of their energy fields. And what happens is let's say you have a girl called Sabrina. And Sabrina is a young witch, and she does her safety charm. So she does it with candles, all of that, and an artificial layer is developed of her energy fields. And this artificial layer will last for, let's say, for 10 days. With a chance it may expire early, around 8 days. So for at least 8 days, she knows no danger can come close to me. And now she goes out. She wears not a mini skirt, but a skirt that's a little bit short. She wears heels and just having a good time. She's not sexually assaulted. She's not. She doesn't receive much angry looks. She just goes and has her way. And after 8 days, she does another charm. She doesn't go out there thinking, you know what? I need to enforce limitations on other people so they don't do anything bad to me. No, she's not occupied with that, because she has done her spiritual thing to be spiritually supplied. So whenever there's danger around, because she has this charm, the danger remains on the outside of her energy fields. So Sabrina is not thinking, I need to put people in a place, I need to put a point by the people don't respect my expectations. No, she's just at ease. And people will see Sabrina saying, oh, she's a very joyful girl. And she is. Now, other girls around who don't have this paranormal cover, with them, danger can come close. So they have a coping mechanism, which is to pay attention to other people and to find a way to control other people. Because that's what boundaries is all about, controlling other people so that you are relieved. That's what boundaries is you controlling others. So other girls are a bit anxious because they know full well that they are vulnerable creatures, especially as females. So they know very well that when things get out of hand, they don't stand a chance. They don't want to carry a gun or any of that. So what they have is they want to frighten others into doing what they say, by ignoring people or shouting at people or whatever they do, just enforce their limitation or boundaries. And it works short term, but they remain burdened and anxious on the long term. And this anxiety on the long term, because they want to control how other people treat them, that anxiety will attract demons and dangerous people. So on the short term, you may be able to back off someone that you can't stand, but on the long term, you'll attract a lot of danger. So let me say it like this. Let's say you have Sabrina. Sabrina walks into a cafe, and there are some guys over there who are sexually violent. Sabrina walks in with her skirt, with her heels and all of that, with her lipstick, and she sits at the bar. And she's joyful like ever, smiling with everyone, not thinking anything bad of anyone. And those guys who are sexually violent, they see her, they smile at her, and that's it. Other girls walk in, and they're anxious because they're vulnerable, because they don't serve God, neither do they have a paranormal cover. And because they are in this anxiety, those sexually violent men feel comfortable around them because there's some darkness that's similar to them. Some of the guys begin to call them, cat name them, saying babe and all of that. And the girls say, F off, get out of here. Don't touch me, or I'll call the police or whatever. And the guys back off. So they use this psychological trick to control those other guys. But now they got the relief. So they hold on to this attitude. And they think they can do this with every type of discomfort that comes in their lives. And then sooner or later realize it's not going to work. So now they're anxious on when it does work, when it doesn't work. This anxiety can be sensed by other dangerous people. And before you know it, they may attract a guy in their lives who's very kind and very soft, but he's a psychopath. And they can't notice it because they're too anxious. And some women end up carrying weapons just to feel secure. Others will begin to do witchcraft spells to harm other people just to feel secure. So this whole thinking of boundaries, by forcing limitations on others to control them, it will drag you further and further into darkness. That's how it goes. But that pagan woman, Sabrina, she doesn't even think about controlling other people. She's just having a good time because she knows how things really work. And that's why she's so joyful, and she doesn't have any stress whatsoever. And her peers are often anxious because of the sexual violence out there. So who's smarter? This pagan Sabrina or these other girls who are so violent into controlling others? Who's smarter? Sabrina is. But the world will promote what those controlling girls are doing, because that control is called enforcing boundaries. It's about seeking relief in yourself. That's what the world promotes. But that thing that the world is teaching you, on the short term, it gives you a side, but on the long term, you attract more and more danger. And that's how it goes. First, You just say no, and people are okay with it. Secondly, there are people, then you attract people who don't take a no for an answer. Now you need to say F off. You need to become more violent. Thirdly, now you begin to avoid people. Fourthly, now you begin to take action against people. Sometimes you begin to take action against people. They didn't even mean you any harm. It's just because you want to be in control so much that you imagine that they were crossing some imaginary line of yours. And you forget that you're not God. So you begin to hold on to imaginary lines, and everyone just has to find a way to deal with those imaginary lines. So you're becoming narcissistic. People think, what? You want to control how people speak? What's wrong with you? And then you will have your reasons for acting dirty towards others because it's self-preservation. And then it goes from there, it goes from bad to worse and worse and worse. But that a pagan woman or a pagan man who just puts a charm around them, at ease. Now, we are believers. So why are we acting more dumb than that pagan? See. Let me see. I'm checking if there are any questions here. Hold on. Okay, I don't see any questions here, so let me wrap this up. So what I've explained is that this method called boundaries that the world is teaching you over and over again is a trap, just like self-defense is a trap. Pagans know better. They just do their charm and they're at ease. They charm their business, they charm their pets, they charm their house and live in, they charm themselves, they charm their children, and they're at ease. So why is it that believers often operate lower than pagans? There's a difference between opposing something and resisting something. It's written in New Testament, submit unto God, resist the devil, and he shall flee from you. Sam Ramis, I'm going to answer a question very soon because this live stream is almost over. It's a very short one. I'm going to answer it soon for you. Okay, what was I saying? Hold on. I just lost it for a moment. What was I saying again? I remember it again. When we, as believers, don't operate in the abundance that Christ has given to us, we are operating in lack. It's written, submit unto God, resist the devil, and shall flee from you. Okay? Submit unto God, that means give yourself over to his abundance. And then you resist the devil, and he, the devil, shall flee from you. So on a spiritual level, how do you resist the devil? By operating God's abundance. Because if you don't submit unto God, so if you don't bring your mind to operate in God's abundance, then the only thing you're left with is darkness. And how are you going to cast out Satan if you're operating in Satan's devices? It's not going to work. So the way you cast out Satan is by operating God's abundance. If you continue in lack, you're participating and walking with Satan. That's how simple it is. So if you hold on to controlling other people, you're operating in darkness. And if you operate in darkness, you're walking with Satan, and you walk with demons, you walk with Nephilim, and eventually walking with wizards, warlocks, witches, and all of those people. That's it. And here's another thing, believers. Just because people are giving comments Doesn't mean I have to accept all the comments. Let me tell you why. If someone gives a comment on my channel and they're suggesting something that's not Christ-centered, I'll delete it because it will be a distraction onto others. And I've had accounts in the past that they want to start debates in the comment section. Not going to happen. Why? Because once you allow such debates and such attacks to continue, it will grow and grow and grow. Just shut that door. What follow-up book will come? Well, I have more that will come out. I'll announce them on YouTube very soon. Also non-fiction, but I'll announce that later, Semiramis. When the time comes, you will just see a notification on YouTube. Again. Okay, there's a question here. Creative 2K Infinity. Can you clarify your question, please? Give me an example so that I can have the context of what you're asking. That will be better when I'm giving an answer. Because I get your question, but I want to know the context. Okay, let me see. So, okay. So believers, I'm waiting for Creative 2K Infinity to give to clarify his or her question. Meanwhile, let me tell you the following. How we deal with people that want to destroy us is very easy. You walk in the abundance of Christ. When you walk in the abundance, you shut down all the lack. That's how simple it is. But why is it that a lot of believers don't realize this? It is because we've been conditioned into strategies and laws and regulations taught to us by pagan churches. So we think, oh, Satan has a kingdom. So as a kingdom, we need to fight this kingdom. Satan has no kingdom. He has a pyramid scheme that tries to be a kingdom, but it's a mess. He's a parasite. And as parasites, demons feed off of us. So if they are dependent on us, they have no powerful structure that's working for them because they rely on us. So knowing this truth, knowing this fact will free you from thinking that you need to have a good plan to defeat Satan. No, operate in the abundance. Let me go to Creative 2K Infinity's question. Okay, it goes like this. When you walk by faith, understand the following. You are operating in power. Strangers, people who never knew about you, they will experience the power that you're walking in. So, for them, it's all new. So they will process it as new. But for people that have been around you for a while you were still in darkness, they are familiar with the dark version of you. And because they are familiar with the dark version of you, because they themselves are in darkness, they want to relate to the dark version of you. Because the dark version of you, which is not around anymore, because now you're new in your mind, but the dark version of you is a version they could shut down or violate when they want it. And because they don't want to change how they think and how they feel, because of that, now when they see you walk in power, they refuse to acknowledge it. So they will remain violent towards you, even if the violence cannot come near you. Why? Because they don't want to accept the new you. That's why when Christ went back to Nazareth, he was rejected in a violent way, because they won't hold on to the old good times. Look, no contact is a method prescribed by many in worldly gurus, and no contact should be applied only when someone is obviously dangerous and they have no intention of becoming better. It's then that you need to keep someone at a safe distance. That's common sense. Okay? But just because someone doesn't do what you want on your terms and you're fed up with them because they don't give in to your will, and now you cut them off, that's narcissistic. But if you have a parent, for example, or maybe a child, but it often parents to do this, that you have a narcissistic parent who wants to control you just so that they can have the final word all the time, and this harms you, but they have no interest in acknowledging that it harms you, then you can lower contact and eventually break all contact to keep danger at a distance. You can't do that. But that's just common sense that you do things like that. So understand here, any method that enables seeking relief is darkness. And every of such methods keeps you in darkness, and you in darkness keeps you in danger. That's why Christ said to shake the dust off your feet. Shaking the dust off your feet is shutting down people's access to you if they tend to bring you down into ruin, just like they are. You can only bring someone down to ruin if you are in ruin yourself. So you have people that operate in ruin, they operate in lack and don't want to leave lack, but they become upset with you because you operate in abundance, and now they want to bring you down into their ruin. If that's what they want to do, then you shake them off of you. And by doing that, you're giving evidence that it's not you, it's not your fault, and that you have the obligation to stop enabling this bad situation. Because if you don't shake them off of you, as Christ told you to, Christ didn't say fight them off of you, just shake them off you, because when you walk in the power, you can just shake them off of you. If you don't walk in the power, you need to fight them off of you. But if you walk in the power, you can just shake them off of you. When you shake them off of you, you do not enable their excuses anymore. So if you're shaking them off and you continue in peace, then everyone can see all down, folks. You're so upset with Kevin because Kevin thinks he's everything. Kevin is not around anymore. He has moved on. He has not contacted you for over 2 years. And you're still complaining about this, Kevin. What's wrong with you? But if you keep on fighting them just to try to change them, now people can use that as an excuse for the violence they're doing. But if you shake them off of you in peace, then you're not enabling their crap anymore. Mm-hmm. So understand this. When you are not operating in abundance, if you don't have an abundance mindset, you're in darkness. And here's the thing. There are pagan philosophers out there talk about an abundance mindset. What those pagan philosophers don't tell people is that the only way your abundance mindset can be supplied is if you're in Christ. An abundance mindset is the key that unlocks the flow of the Holy Spirit in your life. Pagans are told to have an abundance mindset just to see other options. But then they rely on demons to supply those other options, so they're contradicting themselves. But a believer can have an abundance mindset and be at ease because we have the real supply that comes from God. Do you understand what I've explained there? Believers can have an abundance mindset because with us, there are no risks. Pagans can have an abundance mindset, but they need to watch out because they have side effects with what they're operating in. So you will hear pagans talking about an abundance mindset. Know that when pagans talk about abundance mindset, it implies risks. When we talk about abundance mindset, there are no risks for us because when persecution comes, we trample upon it by faith. Yes, just like Semiramis is saying, you have to forgive and process. Oh, amen. Hollywood Illuminati sellouts. This YouTuber is saying it as it is. God practices no contact with reprobates, and we should do the same. Very true. I mean, when Satan began to think that he can challenge God in the heavens, God did not go off against it saying, hey, I'm the boss here, remember? No, no, no. God always remains in peace and joy. God was always in joy. It was Satan that lost his mind. And eventually, it became obvious to everyone in the heavens that Satan is out of his mind. But then you had cowards that enable Satan. So both the cowards that enable Satan, as well as those other creeps that follow this example, all of them were cast out. Okay, what happens? After centuries of civil war in the heavens, the Lord, when it was truly exposed, who was who, the Lord enforced no contact with the fallen angels. So God does not fellowship with them. God does not call them. God does not chill with them. God avoids contact with them because they're not safe. They only want to exploit God's existence. That's it. So God himself practices no contact with reprobates. Aaron, I'm not familiar with that prayer, but if you have a prayer and the model that is Christ-like, you can use it if it's Christ-centered. So if God does not fellowship with Satan, why are we? Whether it's a human being, whether it's a reprobate human being or an evil spirit, they're both reprobates. One has been a reprobate for thousands of years. The other has been a reprobate for maybe a decade or a few, but they're both reprobates. If God does not seek the fellowship of reprobates, neither should we. Now, as human beings, listen to what I'm saying. As human beings, we are merciful and we have empathy towards others. That's true. So we reach out to others. But once we reach out to others, those others have the obligation to receive us in an honorable way. Oh, let me repeat that. As believers, we reach out to others. We don't discriminate. We reach out to people, but they have an obligation to receive us in an honorable way. If they refuse to receive us in an honorable way, then they have made plain to everyone that they stand in agreement with Satan. Okay? So if they persist in standing in agreement with Satan, you know what God's going to do? God is not going to bother you with that because that's a crap they're doing. So what God's going to do is God is happy you've reached out to them, so God's not going to say anything. God is allowing you to be in contact with this individual who persists to stand in agreement with Satan, which is standing in agreement, which means being self-destructive. God allows it to happen, and then one day the Holy Spirit says, block. The Holy Spirit blocks them from you. Suddenly you don't find them on social media anymore. Suddenly, when they see you in the streets, they can't even see you anymore. It's as if God has made you invisible, they don't even notice you. God has blocked them. What has happened? You did your part. You've done you have fulfilled your obligation to reach out. Okay? Multiple times you've done that. Their obligation to receive you, they refuse to do it. So God is not going to blame you for them not doing their part. If they persist in danger, if they persist in being filthy, God will just delete them. And then you would think what's happened. That's what happened. God deletes them. Yes, they have the same personality as Satan. And let me tell you one more thing, believers. Let me tell you one thing, believers. If you were Satan or a direct descendant of Satan, they would put up with you. I'm talking about the world. And this, I've explained this often on YouTube. Worldlings crave control. If you are Satan, if you're filled with darkness, they will embrace you. Why? Because they can control you by using that darkness that's in you. But if you're Christ, I'm not talking about, if you would be Christ himself, they would seek to get rid of you. And if you follow Christ like we believers do, they will tolerate you because they can benefit from you, and then will seek to sabotage you to get you out of the way. I'm telling you, believers, if the world has to choose putting up with Satan's pity party and submitting to the joy of believers, the world will cling onto Satan's pity party, because then they can look down on Satan and feel better than Satan. Because they can get narcissistic relief from abusing Satan, they will choose Satan. And Satan wants to be abused so that he becomes important. That's how crazy Satan is. Satan wants to be abused by reprobates just so that he can feel important. That's how low Satan is. So the world will embrace Satan. They will. But if you come in joy, which is in real safety, who does he think he is? Huh? Who does he think he is? He doesn't allow us to control him. Who is he that we can't control him? Huh? We're going to show him that we can control him. How we can't control him? Oh dear. And then they begin to take it out on their children, on their spouses, and then they're going to blame you. That's how they do in the world. So, as a believer, there are times you need to undertake action. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes when you see someone is way out of line, you just pick up your bags and you walk away. Or if it's in an online setting, when someone begins to dump hatred or accusations in comment sections, you can just block them or delete the comments just to prevent their hatred from having influence on your platform. So as a believer, there are times you have to take action. Don't get me wrong. But when you walk in the power, action is done on your behalf. Some of you, the reason nobody knocks on your door to stab you is because they're holy angelic beings appointed to you out there. And some of those holy angelic beings have visited those perpetrators in their own homes. And those holy angelic beings have warned them in dreams. If you come to this house thinking you're going to stab people or kill people, we will have to take you out. They will never tell people they had those dreams, but next time they see in the streets, they know, oh, okay. The fact that I had this dream that men were telling me, try something at that house and you're finished, I'm not doing anything. So you as a believer, you have heaven's backup. Having heaven's backup does not cancel out that you need to be active, take action. You do. That's your part, but it does all rely on you. Okay? So what I want you to do, believers, is to operate in abundance. I've been saying this since the first video I've made on this channel. I've over 4,000, almost 4,800 videos. I said this since the first video. I've been saying this till now. Operate in abundance. I've explained in many videos what dark thinking is. I'm not going to do it all again. You have many videos to look at. I'm telling you, operate in abundance. When you operate in abundance, you shut down lack. By shutting down lack, you shut down evil. There are more Christ-centered channels out there besides mine. I'm not the only one the Holy Spirit anointed. He has anointed other people also. I'm an anthropologist and sociologist, and I have historical knowledge. So my field, my scope of teaching may be different than someone else. Someone else may not be an anthropologist. They can explain how it all relates together, but there are good things they're saying. Okay? So if you find another believer who is also anointed and they're making videos, you can watch them and learn from them also. Okay? In the body of Christ, everyone plays a role. Not everyone is a sociologist. Not everyone is an anthropologist. Not everyone has deep historical knowledge. Not everyone is already done it. It doesn't have to be. You are you. You are anointed. Do your part. What was Elizabeth's question? Where is she? Where's Elizabeth? Okay. There is no real difference. Lucifer, what is how he's named for real, but he's called Satan, a title which is accuser. Because really, in his fallen state, there's not much left of that light bearing being he used to be. So I hope that answers questions answered. And please don't develop an interest into Satan, please, because there's not much interesting over there. Okay. I have a two-part series I've put online. I'm going to give a link in the live chat now. Hold on. And that explains the whole thing of the Nephilim and reptilians also. So hold on, let me look for that two-part series. For those that need a refreshment on that knowledge. Hold on. Okay. This whole idea of UFOs and US military is just to distract you. They want you to be occupied with what Satan might do instead of you realizing what you are capable of. Hold on. I'm looking for that two-part series. Just hold on, believers. I just gave it in a comment section to someone else yesterday, so I'm looking for that comment, and then I'll share the link with you. Just do not develop an unhealthy interest in the enemy, please. He's not worth it. Finally. Hold on. Yes, finally, here it is. A two-part series of 2 videos. I explained about reptilians, all of that. Reptilians are just a type of Nephilim that came into being by what some of those fallen ones were doing. Natasha Robinson, check the link I've just shared. It will explain a lot to you. And Apollo and Hermes are 2 Nephilim sons of the enemy. They formed unholy trinity. That's true. Okay, let me see. Are there any more questions? This is the end of the live stream, but I'm giving space for questions now. I'll wait. Okay. If there are no questions, I'm going to end this live. Oh, what? Hold on a minute. Do you think God's timing is slow? No, God's timing is not slow. It's slow to us because we often think in lack, saying, oh, You can't get time back, so we need to make sure we do the best thing now, or else we think in lack. Instead of realizing, oh, we are alive today, what can we do today? Which cheese can we sow today? It's how we think and how it relates to time that determines what we're able to do with it. God's timing is always perfect. Chuang, I'm glad you finally overcame all of it. Keep on walking by faith. Keep on walking by faith. Keep on operating in abundance. Okay, I'm going to close this live stream now. Keep on walking by faith. And remember, you can always email me and I'll do my best to answer as soon as possible. Be at peace.